Science has gone a long way, and one of the long-term inventions has been plastic. It is used all over the world, but it is a well-known fact that plastic does not decompose. It also kills animals and is generally bad for the environment. But out of all the types of dangers that plastic brings, the one I want to focus on is microplastics, which are little plastics that disintegrate into small plastics in the ocean. This is, these are especially bad because they become so small that they go into fish and harm their organs. The plastic stays in the fish that other fish later eat, and the plastic flows through the food chain, leading to us and putting plastic into our bodies. Not a fun cycle. Plastic is one of the biggest selling materials around the world. The plastic industry is so big that the plastic shares in 2014 were $961 billion. Leo Hendrik Bakelard was the creator of the first polyester plastic, which made a real hit, being used mainly in military and for other small inventions. Plastic is made from one of the most polluting processes on the planet. To make plastic, you need oil, and oil could just be the next worst resource for the environment, because it takes thousands of years to make and is taken straight from the earth. It is possible to make it in a lab, but the factories make a lot more air pollution. It is a classic example of pollution. After tons of oil taken from the earth and causing disruption in the environment, the oil turns into an everlasting material in another air polluting factory that is tossed into the sea. Did you know that if all the plastic in the world was being used right now, we would have more than enough? So the companies are just making more plastic because we dump our old plastic in the ocean. There's 8.3 billion tons. Do you think you could get by on recycling a ton of plastic for only you? Microplastics are the main cause for sea animal deaths relating to humans. More die to absorbing plastic than from oil spills and fishermen, not combined. Most microplastics are smaller than the eye can see. The fish just swim into water full of plastic. Those plastics flow into their gill and goes into their internal organs and damages it. 1 million seabirds and 100,000 marine mammals die every year from consumption of plastic. Most of the plastic comes from our shores around the world. All plastic not burned, which is still bad and causes global warming, is harming the environments around the world and slowly decomposing into microplastics. 260 million tons of plastic have ended up in our ocean. Each year, 30 million tons of plastic is produced, and 10% of it, 30 million tons, ends up in the ocean. So, microplastics also are impossible to avoid once the plastic is in the water, because if some of it dissolves, that it spreads as fast as waves. It moves all over and is proved because the farthest parts of the ocean and the deepest are as polluted, even though no one went down there and dropped plastic. This year, microplastics are 24 times higher than last year's estimate. That's equivalent to the mass of more than 1,300 blue whales. In the category of microplastics, there are microbeads, which are little polyester materials, like plastic, that go into most healthcare products. When used and washed down the drain later, it goes into the sea, or microplastics. Like microplastics, it goes through the same path, through the food chain. The only present-day solutions are organic plastics, but that would be very challenging to humans' daily life. Organic plastics made of cornstarch, and it takes longer to make, more costly, and when it gets older, it starts to fall apart, which is also a benefit of it because it decomposes quicker. Most organic plastics is not also colored to not use any unnatural materials. In the end, it is possible that there are easier solutions that we to this day are trying to put in place. Recycling. Recycling is quite simple. It's reusing, in our case, it's reusing plastic to be later used for other plastic materials. And to repeat, then we don't need to use and make much plastic. And less would be thrown out, destroying our earth and burning into our ozone. Recycling is also helpful to keep plastic in the system and not being in the street or harming fish. And I can say how bad plastic is truly for us and our earth. Recycling also is as easy as putting it in the trash, so it's not as demanding. As long as we can get the plastic into the bins, it's all in check. Recap. Microplastics are bad. Microplastics make bad that lead to bad. Microplastics are getting thrown away and growing more than expected, but there are solutions which are trying to be incorporated.